In this tutorial, we will have a look how we can make this dialogue with dialogue manager script. And also I want to especially thanks to Ba Tran Ding 23C2 to Hoang Tran Ang, and a special thanks to Ken Jing for purchasing source code of my game in on my Patreon page. And if you guys want to get this game source code build and all of these things, then you can check out on my Patreon page. And also I have some amazing Unity 6 and C# course, Udemy course, you can see in my description. So without furthering delay, let's dive into this top tutorial. I have the dialog background as well as I have the dialog text and the next button. So let's quickly create a dialog manager script in order to show the dialog. To do that, we will navigate to our project tab, assets, then we will head over to our script folder, or you can simply do inside this assets folder by right click, create in the top, then mono behavior script, and you can name that script to something like dialog manager. And I already created a script called dialog manager and I have it over here as you can notice. So let's create an empty game object to attach our dialog script, or we can do with any game object we can. I'm gonna create an empty game object for my dialog manager. So let's go to hierarchy, right click or hit this plus icon. Let's create an empty game object and I'm gonna name this game object to as my script name, which is dialog dialog manager, just like that. And then I will head over to inspector. I'm gonna reset the transform and I will select this game object and I'm gonna drag it in the top in hierarchy so I can see all the time. And let's select the script, drag it over to this add component section in the inspector, and let's quickly open up our dialog manager script. So before we get into this dialog manager script, I want to explain what we're gonna do. So first thing, we're gonna create in sentences array because we will have bunch of sentences to say to speak, and we're gonna take all of those sentences and then we're gonna use kiwi just like a bucket type. It's a first FIFO collection, first in first out, or you can think of it that is a bucket that we will take all of our sentences and we're gonna put into that kiwi bucket or kiwi, and then we will extract all of the sentences one by one from that kiwi or from that bucket. So that is the logic. So firstly we need to create the sentences array, and that will be string because we're gonna have bunch of sentences, basically couple of sentences. Let's make it public, and this will be string, and we need to make it array, basically these square brackets, and we can call this one sentences, just like that. And now it's done and we can save our script. But if we want to more area to each of sentences, then we need to type. So basically go to top of your sentences array and over here make this square brackets and type this text area, and over here in brackets you can put minimum line and the maximum. So minimum I want 3 and the maximum I want 10. And now it's done and we can save our script. And let's go over to Unity editor. We're gonna go over to Unity editor and we need to set our sentences. Basically we just created a sentences array and now we are ready to put the sentences there. Now we can see we done, and underneath our dialog manager script we can see sentences array. So let's click on this plus icon and we can see the area. So the minimum is 3 and the maximum is 10, and I'm gonna click a couple of times. So let's click on this plus icon. So I'm gonna have 3 sentences, so that's why. So firstly I will say I am Vairap Roy, and then I teach coding, just like that. I My YouTube YouTube channel name is bad code, just like that. And now it's fine, and we have these 3 sentences we can see. And now we're gonna take one by one and we're gonna put it into our kiwi. But before we put our kiwi, we need to define the kiwi. So let's quickly open up our script and make sure you go to top of your class and include this namespace called using system.collection.generic. It's gonna allow us to use kiwi. So we need to use this kiwi, and it doesn't need to be public, so we can make this one instead private, and that will be kiwi type, kiwi. And kiwi can be and you need to make these arrows, and this kiwi can be, it can be string type, it can be integer type, it can be float type. So since sentences we putting, so it's gonna be string type. So inside these arrows we basically need to type this string, and we have to name the kiwi. So I'm gonna call it just like kiwi, kiwi, just like that, and close that up with semicolon. And now we need to create the kiwi. So we will move over to this start function, and we do know that a start function get called in the start of the game. So in this start of the game, we're gonna set our kiwi equal to a new kiwi. Basically we just defining that, defining that. So we're gonna set our kiwi, and you can think of this kiwi is like a bucket where we're gonna put all of our sentences. So we're gonna set kiwi equal to new kiwi, new kiwi, and make sure you pass inside this arrows string, and you need to make this first bracket and then close that up with semicolon. Basically we initializing our kiwi, and after initializing kiwi, basically created our kiwi, we are ready to put our sentences there. And to put that, we need to use this for each, and double tap on your tab key twice, multiple times, so it's gonna basically fill out the format or basically the syntax. So this var you can replace with string, so we're gonna pass string, and we can call item. Instead of item, we're gonna call this one sentence. And we just gonna go with this sentences array. So we're gonna look for sentences array. So let's, sorry, this will be string sentences in our sentences array. So what we simply doing over here, we basically, sorry, we basically going over to our sentences array, as you can see. So a string sentence, basically we taking one sentence and then we just going over to our sentences array. Basically this sentences array you can see underneath our dialog manager script, and that's why we use this for each. So basically we're gonna look for each one, and then we're gonna put it into that keyword that we define it or initialize it. And now we are ready to do that. To do that, we need to type this kiwi dot, and in order to put that, we need to use this nq in kiwi, and then make first bracket and then close that up with semicolon. And inside this bracket you basically need to pass the sentence. So we're gonna pass our this sentence from our sentences array. So what it's simply doing, we're just taking the first one and then we just putting into this kiwi dot enqueue, means that we just putting into that kiwi what we putting sentence in our sentences array. Basically this sentences array we can see underneath our dialog manager script, and we putting all of them, we can notice over here inside in this sentences array one by one. And now we just put it in the start of the game after creating the kiwi, basically the bucket, and taking all of our sentences and putting there, and we are ready to extract them. And for that we can simply use a function. To extract that, I'm gonna make this function public since we're gonna call through a button, so we need to mark that function as public. I want to call it once I'm gonna click on this next button, so that's why. So we're gonna make this one public for function void, and I'm gonna say load sentence, just like that, load a sentence, then first bracket and some curly brackets. And over here what we just want to do, we just want to extract our sentence. Basically we're just gonna go over to that kiwi and we're gonna extract our sentence one by one. And to extract that, what we need to do, we need to use this kiwi dot dq function. It basically means we just extracting. And after extracting the sentence, basically this will be our sentence, So what we're gonna do after extracting that, we're gonna put it into a string, because this kiwi dot dq basically just gonna extract our sentence, and this sentence we can see is a string type. So that's why we're gonna put our sentence into a string variable. So let's put our sentence string, and we can call this one sentence, just like that. Sorry, this should be sentence equal to this. Means we just taking so let's suppose the first one, if we call this load sentence function for the first time, then we dq means we just extracting, and the first sentence will be this one, which is I am Vairaproy. So this will be I am Vairaproy for the first time, and we just taking that sentence and then we putting into this sentence array, which is I am Vairaproy. So I want to see inside my console tab. So for that, we do know that we need to use this debug.log function. So let's use that. So I'm going to type debug.log, and what I want to print out, I just want to print out my sentence. So I'm going to pass my sentence, and now close that up with semicolon, and we need to check with our next button. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna call this function, you can call it anywhere you want. You can just move over to this update function, and you can just check with right mouse button. I'm gonna check with right mouse button. Let's use the if condition, first bracket and some curly brackets. So we're gonna check for some input. So I will pass input dot get mouse button down, then make this bracket, and inside this bracket we need to pass the 0 or 1. 0 basically means the left mouse button, so I'm gonna pass 1 instead of the 0, so it will check for right mouse button. So if input dot get mouse button down 1 means if we clicking the right mouse button, then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna call this function, and what this function is doing, it's simply dequeuing our dequeuing, basically extracting, and then we just putting that sentence what we dequeue, and then we storing into this sentence variable, string sentence variable that we created a temporary variable, and then we just printing out the that sentence. And now we need to call the function which is load sentence. So let's call our load sentence, make first bracket, close that up with semicolon, and let's save our script quickly, and let's get over to Unity editor. So as soon as we're gonna click right mouse button, we will able to notice those sentences just gonna extract one by one as soon as we're gonna click the right mouse button. And we have bunch of sentences we can see underneath our sentences array. And if I just go ahead and right click, we can see that I am Vairaproy inside my console tab just gets pop up. And if I right click one more time, the next sentence gets pop up, which is I teach coding, we can see. And if I right click one more time, and it says YouTube channel name is bad code, basically the third as sentence get extracted. And if I click one more time, basically fourth time, we can notice a error just pops up, says kiwi is empty, because we just extracted all of them. So that is the reason. So what we need to do, before we extract all of the sentences one by one, we need to check if the kiwi is empty, then we need to stop doing that. So let's get out of play mode, and let's double click on this message in order to move over to that line of code. So before we extract our sentences from that kiwi, basically we extracted 3 sentences, so that's why that kiwi or the bucket got empty. So we need to check if the bucket is already empty, means our kiwi, then we need to stop dequeuing those sentences. So we will check. So let's use the if condition, first bracket, some curly brackets, and we will check over here if our kiwi dot count, if it's equals to 0, means we don't have any sentences at all and it's empty. If that is the case, then we don't want to do, basically we stop need to doing that. But let's suppose kiwi dot count is not equal to 0, means we have some sentences to speak, then we're gonna go and do these things. So that's why we're gonna put control X for cut, and let's paste inside by control V. And what we're doing simply over here, we're checking if the kiwi dot count is not equal to 0, means we have sentences in our bucket or to that kiwi, and then we just dequeuing that, means extracting and showing up. And that is the thing. And by now we should not able to see that error message just gonna pop up. So we can save our script and we can move over to Unity editor in order to check that out. And I want to call that function instead of calling through a button. So I'm gonna remove that, and I already made this function public, so we can simply call this function from our button. So I'm gonna press down one more time, control S, in order to save my script, and I can just move over to Unity editor. And I'm gonna select my next button. So let's go over to canvas in the hierarchy, then dialog UI. I will choose the next button, and go over to inspector, go to button component, scroll down to the button component, and let's click on this plus icon. And we need to drag the game object in which game object the script is sitting on. So in my case, this dialog manager, so let's drag it there, and it says no function, so let's click on it. Let's go to dialog manager C# class or script, and there I can see I have created this load sentence function. So I'm gonna choose that, means whenever we're gonna click on this next button, by now that message just gonna pop up inside our console tab, basically those sentences, and we can quickly check that out as well. So let's take a look on this. So as soon as we're gonna click on this left next button, the immediately that those sentences just gonna extract one by one. So if I click on this next button, we can see this message, and if I click one more time, I can see I am Vaira Proy, I teach coding, my YouTube channel name is Badcode. And if I go ahead and click on this fourth time, the message basically the error will not be pop up by now, because before we dequeuing or extracting those sentences, we checking if the kiwi is totally empty, then we just stopping doing that. So I hope you get the idea. And I'm gonna get out of play mode, and instead of showing up in the console tab, we need to show up in the this dialog text. So we need a reference of this dialog text, then we can do that. So if I move over to my dialog text, I have it. So we need a reference to this dialog, basically this text component, then we can show up instead of showing up inside our console tab. So let's go over to our script, and over here I'm gonna remove this line of code, and let's go to top of our class, because we need to grab the reference. So that text element is a UI element. So whenever we working with UI, we need to make sure that we go to top of our class, and we include this namespace called using unity engine dot UI, just like that. And let's close that up with semicolon. And now we're gonna make a variable for that. So let's grab the reference first. So we're gonna make a public, that is a text element, and we can call this one dialog text, just like that, dialog text. And let's close that up with semicolon. And now we need to drag the reference in that slot. So we need to choose our dialog manager script, and underneath we should see that's just gonna pop up right away, and we need to drag the reference there. So we will have the reference, and after having the reference, we basically just want to show that up. So if I select my dialog manager game object, so underneath my dialog manager script, in the bottom I can notice dialog text, and it says none text. So I'm gonna choose my dialog text, and let's drag it there. Now we have the reference. So let's go over to our script, and over here we're doing that. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna set our dialog text dot text, basically accessing the text element, and we're gonna set equal to our sentence, and we're gonna close that up with semicolon. So basically what we're doing, we're simply moving over to this dialog text game object, and then accessing this text, and then we setting this text equal to our sentences. So it the that message should be pop up inside this dialog text. So let's quickly save our script and let's see that once again. And now it's done. Let's play our game and see that what's really happening. We can see I am Vairav Roy, I teach coding, and then my YouTube channel name is Pat Code. Basically working fine, but we should basically we do a nice animation, means all of these letters should be at one by one. Basically it's gonna take a few duration and then it's gonna show up the animation. I hope you just getting that. So I will get out of play mode, and for that what we need to do, we're gonna use I enumerator. So instead of using this function which we doing over here, we're gonna use I enumerator. So what we can do, let's create a separate function for this. So that will be I enumerator. But before we use that function, we basically need to go to top of our class and we need to include this namespace called using using system dot collection. So this namespace you need to include if you just want to do some certain things after some period of time. So we need to use this using system dot collection, and it's gonna allow us in order to use that I enumerator function. And I'm gonna make it something over here. So we need to type this I enumerator first, and then we can say something like letters, just like that, and then make first bracket and some curly brackets. And over here what I am gonna do, I'm gonna put all of this. Basically I'm gonna take this if condition and by control X, and we're gonna put inside this function which is letters. So if it's not equal to none, null. So now what we want to do, so first thing we're gonna set our text to 0, basically totally empty we need to set. If we go over to this dialog text, then go over to inspector text component, we just want this to be totally empty in the start of the game. So that's why in the start I'm gonna set so firstly we will go to dialog text dot text. We're gonna access the text component and we're gonna set equal to a empty string, just like that. And after doing that we can just do that, we can do that. Basically we can instead of directly setting it, we will use the for each loop once again. So let's use this for each loop and double tap on your tab keyboard twice, so it's gonna fill out the format. And we can call this one car or character, and let's instead of calling item we're gonna say something like letter, and we do want to do inside this sentence. So let's assume the first one. So if I select my dialog manager game object, so I am Vairav Roy. So we just want to split it. Basically we just want to add this all of this letter one by one. So that's why firstly we just set it to empty, and now we just going to that that sentence. So instead of typing collection we're gonna look for sentence, means you can assume that we just going over to this I am Vairav Roy sentence. And now what we're gonna do, we just gonna add our letter one by one. To add that we need to use this letter. Firstly we need to go over to this dialog text. We need to access this dialog text first. So let's do that. So firstly we will go to dialog text dot text, and top of that, dialog text dot text, and top of that we're gonna add our letter. So plus equal letter, just like that. And now it's done. And after doing that we just want to wait a one frame. So in order to wait a one frame, we basically need to use this yield return null. It's basically means we just waiting one frame, and then we just adding our text. You can see we just gonna add one by one. So basically we need to split this sentence to two car array. So we need to type this dot two car array, just like that. So make sure you do that. I really apologize. Basically we just splitting these words. So if I select my dialog manager game object in the hierarchy dialog manager script, we basically taking this I am Vairaproy sentence, and we just splitting all of these words, all of these words like I, a, am. And then what we doing after doing this two card array, basically splitting like that, you can assume. Then we just adding all of those letter one by one top of this dialog text, we can see. So dialog text dot text means we just going over to this dialog text, then accessing this text component, and then adding the letter one by one, as you can see. And then we waiting one frame, yield return null basically means waiting one frame, and then again we adding our one letter, and that's just gonna make the animation. I hope you get the idea, and if you have any question, you can let me know in the comment section. And we almost done over here. And now we need to call this letters function. So we're gonna call it inside this load function over here, because we cannot directly call a I enumerator function through a button. So that's why we're gonna call it this load inside this load sentences function that we created. And we do know we calling this function once we're gonna click on that next button. So let's call this letters. We cannot call it directly typing these letters and then make this first bracket, close that up with semicolon. Instead we need to call this in a start coroutine. It's kind of bit weird, but we have to use that. So first thing, we need to type this start coroutine and then make this first bracket, and inside this bracket you need to call the function. So in our case that is a letters, then make first bracket and close that up with semicolon, and that's all you need to do that. And I'm gonna remove this update function, I don't need at all. And we can save our script, and we can move over to Unity editor immediately after saving our script. And if I go ahead and play my game, it should be fine. And let's suppose you just want to get the source code of this game. Of course I will have a link in the description, you can go and check that out, basically the source code of this game. So now if I click on this next button, we can see I am fire upright, and these letters just getting add one by one, basically waiting one frame. And if I click once again this next button, we can see I teach coding. And if I click once again, says my YouTube channel name is bad code, and it's working fine. And once we click fourth time, the key is totally empty, so we can see it's basically working fine. So I hope you get the idea that how you can do it, and I'm gonna get out of play mode. And lastly, thanks for watching this tutorial. I will see you in the next one.